Week 4. Here we go. Understanding exile. Okay, first things first. If the wilderness is your entire life, exile is the season of life. Exile is the thing that propels you into different circumstances in your life. I wrote down a bunch of these things. I don't know if they'll make sense to you, but they made sense to me. The wilderness molds you. Exile propels you. Wilderness is character building. Exile draws you closer to God. So the things that go, your life will build your character, but exile in the character building will actually continue to draw you closer to God. I'm going to explain a little bit of that today. Okay. So the wilderness is your life. Exile is the seasons that propel you forward. And so today on Storytime with Chari, we're going to talk about different exile seasons that I've walked through. Okay, also, if you're reading the book along with this, thank you. You'll notice that this is a loose translation of the content. In the first 3 chapters of the book, I talk a lot about my personal life story and my family. And those are the things I really wish I understood during those seasons of brokenness, during those seasons of unraveling, was God's timing, what my season was, what the wilderness actually was, what my life should actually look like. And so that's how I tied them together, because those are the things I wish I knew. And so if you're in the book, we are now in exile, legit, talking about defining exile, which I just defined again as the wilderness is what you're going to live in from here to eternity, but exile is the thing that propels you and draws you closer to God. And so, oh my gosh, there's so many different stories I could share with you guys about exile and seasons that I feel like have propelled me forward. But this one particularly is the one I'm going to share. Okay, story time with Chari begins. So I talk about in the book, my grandmother passing away. And so my grandmother passed away first, and then my grandfather passed away 5 years later. And I remember when Mama died, all I wanted to do was spend time with Poppy, because I didn't want the same overwhelming feeling that I had maybe neglected her and not taken her advice the way that I should have. I should have spent more time with her. I remember during a season in my early 30s, all I wanted to do was shoot a documentary about my family. And so I have all her little voicemails. And I remember one summer I was going to go and do it. And then I was just like, no, I'll do it another day when I can do it better. That's what I remember saying that. I remember being like, if I can't do it the way that I want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And now I don't have it. At least I don't have her voice on it. And then Papi Chino. And then, so Papi Chino lived for 5 years after my grandmother. And if I can be real frank and real honest, he didn't do too well without her. You know, he had known her since they were like in their 20s, and he had spent his entire life with her. He passed away in his late 80s, pretty tragically. I would prefer not to say how, but it was a shock to our family. And I remember there was a moment when it happened that I felt the unraveling come again. And I felt like the Lord was like, don't. Remember how you dealt with this before. I'm here, and I'm going to walk you through this. And I remember, just like I said, exile propels you, draws you closer to God. I then began to seek God with a fervor. Like I thought I knew how to seek God until I was probably the worst brokenness I felt. And I was like, not again. Oh my gosh, not again. I can't go through this again. And God was like, I'm here. I'm with you. And, you know, exile seasons draw you closer to God. I look at this story in Jeremiah, the one that you're going to read today. And Jeremiah has this dream. And in the dream, it's good figs and bad figs. And he goes on to say that the good figs are the ones that God has sent into captivity, and the bad figs are the ones that he hasn't. And I remembered this story during that season, during that situation, because I had to go, okay, God, I remember that this feeling that I feel right now, it's actually drawing me closer to you. It's drawing me back to you. And in the drawing back, it was like I found my joy again. See, happiness is a feeling. Happiness, sadness, all those things, they're feelings, but feelings fade. Feelings, fruit of the spirits, the fruits of the Spirit do not fade. And joy is a fruit of the Spirit. And so today, I want you to embrace your exile seasons. Embrace the trying seasons that propel us forward, that are hard. Embrace them. Embrace them. I'm talking about bear hug them in the Spirit. Bear hug them and go, God, this is hard. But God, you know what was also hard? The cross. And I'm not talking about unhealthy situations like abuse and that. That you need to handle. I'm not a counselor, so I can't really tell you how to do that, but get some help. And I'm talking about work is hard. Life is hard. You have to embrace exile because you have to embrace it in your heart, in your attitude, in your actions, in your words. And as a result, when you embrace certain situations and certain hardships, what happens is joy is then produced. Chari, you're saying that hard things produce joy? Yeah. You know what was hard? The cross. Him getting on the cross. But the joy was set before him. It says in the Bible that the joy was set before him. What was before him? The cross. Suffering, brokenness, taking on the sins of the world. But that's so that you and I could then experience joy. Happiness is not joy. Happiness is a feeling. Joy is a fruit of the Spirit. Happiness fades. You ever been happy and then all of a sudden you're not? Yeah, because feelings fade, but joy does not fade. Joy is a fruit. Remember I talked about limes and lemons in my tree, and I don't know anything about fruit. The fruit of the Spirit, the things that are the fruits of the Spirit, patience, self-control, all those things, they take time to be produced in you. And so once those things are produced, once you exile season after exile season after exile season, when you embrace it in your heart and embrace it in your words and you allow it to draw you back to God, what happens is then joy begins to be produced. Okay, so let me try to explain this a little better because I don't know if I am. When you embrace an exile season in your heart, you do it like this. God, I don't really understand it. I don't really understand why you got me walking through this, but God, guard my heart because it's the wellspring of life. Lord, guard my heart not to get bitter. Guard my heart to see people the way that you see them. That's how you embrace it in your heart. You embrace it in your attitude by saying, God, I am more than a conqueror. God, I know that you're never going to leave me nor forsake me. You speak the word of God over your life. And what happens is you do it. You then become a person that when people encounter you, they're not bitter. They're not frustrated. I do this where people are encountering me and I'm in a situation that's uncomfortable and I'll just be like, I'm really busy. I'm just really frustrated. And then I speak those things over myself. I say it here in your actions and in your words. Like the worst thing you can do in an exile season is speak death over something that God's asking you to speak life over. One of the things that I can give an example about embracing exile seasons is when I was really struggling with depression after Poppy died. I would say stuff to my husband like, I'm depressed. I think I'm depressed. And I felt the Holy Spirit one day say, but I'm not. You know when Moses, the burning bush thing was happening and God said his name was I am that I am. Why do we attach I am, which is the name of God, to brokenness? And I felt like God was saying, you attach me to broken things instead of letting me take those broken things and making them new. So stop saying I am depressed because I am is not depressed. I am is joy. So instead I would go to my husband and I would say, hey, I'm feeling really melancholy. I'm really sensing that in depression, I feel like there's like a cloud of depression. And instead I began to speak about it differently. And as I began to speak about it differently, God began to handle things differently within me. Hi, Kat. How are you? You coming over? Did you hear I was depressed? And you were like, I'm here. Yeah. Let me know when you're going to say hi to everybody. She was just scratching my couch. I want you to know that I heard it. I did not get up, but I'm going to handle her later. Anyways, so what are you in your life speaking and attaching God to that's negative instead of attaching God to I am full of joy. I am this. I am that. And so that's how you embrace it. So now when those things like, I don't attach him to I'm tired and I'm frustrated. I attach him to I am full of joy. I am full of his presence. I'm full of his word. I am his, because that's what I am. And Yeah, that's how you embrace exile season, the thing that draws you forward. Jeremiah was being reminded in this moment that it's good. It's like a beautiful captivity. God's trying to captivate your heart, captivate all that you are, captivate your words. So this week, embrace it. Embrace the beautiful captivity that is exile. He is literally, exile. My parents are exiles, right? My grandparents are exiles from Cuba. And when they were exiled, they lost their language, they lost their identity, they lost all that they had built and had to take on a new identity. If God is sending you into an exile season that is shaking you, that is hard, it's because He's reestablishing language, He's reestablishing identity, He's reestablishing things in you. So ask Him, God, what are you reestablishing in this hard season? What are you showing me in this hard season? Because my friends, if you can draw close to Him, what He's going to produce in you is joy, and joy does not fade.